So look, after going back and watching the tape, I still feel like there was a lot to be pleased with in terms of what we did in all three phases, offensively, defensively, and in the kicking game. And yet I felt like we left a lot of opportunities out there on the field. And so that was part of the emphasis of the meeting today, is that, although there was a lot of things to be pleased with, there's several things that we've got to clean up. I thought there were some opportunities down the field offensively, potentially for some explosive plays. We've got to get the penalties cleaned up. That'll come back to haunt us. I thought we had some missed opportunities in terms of being able to take the ball away on defense. So, pleased with the win, and yet got some things we got to get fixed.
The NFL shutouts are difficult. Did you get a sense of, I guess, a rhythm defensively in the play calling and the syncing up with the players?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it ultimately boils down to the players going out there and executing their jobs, and it doesn't really matter what the play call is. If they go out and do what they're supposed to do, when you have talented players and they do that, then generally you get good results. I thought our guys had great focus throughout the week. I thought they understood, what we were trying to do from a game plan's perspective, and yet, ultimately it boiled down to those guys, locked in, focused in, and doing their job. And so, it was good to see.
Yeah, it's kind of like piggybacking off of that. You've had a shutout each of the last 3 seasons. How hard is that to do in the NFL?
It's extremely difficult. I don't think you see very many of those. And so, obviously there's a little bit of luck that goes involved in it. They got themselves into field goal range and missed a long field goal. And that's kind of the way those things have to happen, is generally you get a break that kind of goes your way. And so, but yeah, they're difficult to come by. And I thought our guys did a good job of, finishing out the game. And that's part of it.
You talked about the focus, and obviously the result is what you wanted. But with the penalties, if there was an answer, I'm sure you'd say we fix it right away. But is it attention to detail? Is it practice? I guess, how do you fix something like that?
Yeah, look, I think it's focus. I think it's attention to detail. I think those are all aspects. We incorporated a little bit more movement offensively in terms of what we were doing, pre-snap, shift, motion, some of those things. And you go back and you look at the penalties, and typically most of them occurred when there was some sort of pre-snap, shift or motion. So something we kind of incorporate a little bit more into the game plan, and so our guys got to get used to. If we're going to do these things, we have to be able to execute them at a high level. And so, you don't want to be putting yourself into a negative position by, particularly the pre-snap penalties. Sometimes there's some post-snap penalties that happen. And part of that is the price of doing business in our league. And yet, we feel like, there's some technique and fundamental things that minimize the risk of having any type of post-snap penalties. But the pre-snap penalties, they got to go away.
Yeah, I think you alluded to some yesterday, but how much does a defensive touchdown just change the complexion of the game?
Yeah, well, I think it's huge. I mean, it just changes the whole momentum of where you're at, in terms of your team. I think it can be demoralizing to the opponent, particularly when you're able to create something like that on the road. I think if you go through the history of our game and you look at, non-offensive scores, so call it defensive touchdowns, special teams touchdowns, things of that nature. It's a high percentage win probability when you're able to score by other means other than your offense. And so, I thought that was a big boost for our team at that point in time.
How are the Oaks actually continuing to improve? The sack number continues to go down each week now.
Yeah, look, I think it's just a process and part of the work ethic of continuing to work on it, each and every week. I think the last couple of weeks, I think our offensive line has played, much better. We had one protection issue early in the game where we missed a protection, and then we had one later in the game where, I think we were trying to get something a little bit more down the field, and we ended up holding on to the ball a little bit. So I think from a protection standpoint, it's been much improved.
Yeah, what does it say about Michael Thomas that he embraces catching those balls across the middle and drawing contact? How much does that just help the offense?
I think he loves that part of the game. I think he's just a physically and mentally tough individual, and I think it's a good feeling to know that you can throw the ball up in a contested environment, and more often than not, Mike's going to come down with it. So I think that's just the way he's wired.
I know you all were supposed to practice him because of injuries, it didn't work out, but maybe started looking at Houston, and maybe just like Stroud, like due diligence last year, just kind of maybe some thoughts on him, even if you didn't.
Yeah, no, we've started that process a little bit, just kind of in the early stages of it. I mean, obviously we played him in the preseason. He did play against us in the preseason. Led a touchdown drive. I think it was the second drive of the game. And so, look, I'm impressed with their football team. I know the type of team that they're going to be. I know that they're in the same mold of, the San Francisco 49ers in terms of the way they, see their team being built. They're going to run the football. They're going to play action pass. They're going to be very physical on both sides of the ball. They're going to make you earn it from a defensive perspective, and they're going to fly around and be a good tackling team. And, when they get you into favorable situations, they're going to try to get after the passer. So I know that, D'Amico does a great job of coaching those guys. I know what that culture's like and what that mindset's like, and it'll be a tough challenge.
41 rush attempts and almost 40 minutes of possession time. What does that speak to the importance of getting a lead early and then being able to kind of grind the team?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously being able to jump out to a lead, is important in terms of, trying to control the clock and being able to manage the game. Obviously, I think offensively we had like 200 yards at half and 14 offensive points. So there was some consistency in what we were doing offensively, and yet I still feel like there were some opportunities that we left out there. So, I think anytime that you're able to run the ball, call it 40 times in a game, generally you're going to have a lot of yards rushing. Whether or not the average is that high or not doesn't really matter. It's more about the ability to have those attempts. And so I thought we did a good job at times of really, moving the line of scrimmage and creating some lanes for our runners. I thought our runners ran exceptionally hard in the game, which was awesome to see. There were some times where, maybe there wasn't as much there, and they hit the hole hard and pressed and got, what they could out of it. They turned probably maybe a 1 to 2 yard gain into a 3 or 4 yard gain. I think those are big body blows in a game.
What does it do for the offense to have that kind of a red zone efficiency for the first time this year?
Well, I think look, confidence is born out of demonstrated ability. I think we've heard that said around here, and I think it's a true statement, and so the fact that you get the ball down there in the red area, we were 3 of 3 really. One was a kneel down there at the end of the game. So, 3 of 3 opportunities down there in the red area. I thought we ran the ball effectively down there in the red area. I think if you want to be a good, red zone offense, one of the things you have to be able to do is you have to be able to run the ball and run the ball effectively down there. So, I thought we did a good job there. I thought Pete made a couple of really good play calls. A couple of plays that we had, dialed up that we thought, had a chance to have some success. And so I thought the shovel pass out there on the 6 yard line was a great call. And then, a little throwback to Olave in the back of the end zone. I thought that was a good call. And then obviously our guys executed.
I know you miscredited the runners, but I was going to ask you how the offensive line graded out run blocking, because that seemed like that was.
Yeah, I thought overall it was pretty good. I thought there were some plays in there where we really got some movement on the line of scrimmage. Obviously, It wasn't perfect, but yet I thought, and I think overall, I think our offensive line the last couple of weeks has played better, and so, I anticipate and expect that for them to continue to improve as the season goes on.
Can that be one of the easiest things to say, but hardest things to do, establish the run or, be stubborn with the run?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, the game and how the game plays out kind of dictates a little bit on how you're able to, play the game. Certainly if you're out to a lead, it makes it a little bit easier just to continue to try to, run the football. Because the reality is in the run game, there's a lot of 3 and 4 yard gains. And then all of a sudden there's a 15-yard, explosive. So it's about having those attempts. And, if you're down in the game, it makes it more challenging. And then obviously if you're up in the game, it makes it a little bit easier to do.
You mentioned that y'all used more pre-snap motion on offense. Do you think the improved productivity was more changing some things or not trying to reinvent the wheel and just going back to work at what you believe in?
Well, I think there's probably a little bit of both. I think that'd be a fair assessment to say that there's a little bit of both to that. I think, we got to continue to do a good job each and every week of, seeing our team, not only through our own eyes, but seeing our team through the eyes of our opponent and how they're going to see us. And so, our ability to kind of self-scout ourselves, look at what we're doing, and see if we're giving any type of, advantage to our opponent. And so, I thought we did a nice job with some of those things, in the game. And then ultimately, I don't care whether you motion, don't motion, shift, don't shift, run it, throw it, how you call it, it then boils down to execution. So you can have all the pretty shifts and motions that you want to have, and they look cute, but ultimately you got to be able to, get to the right people and block the right people and execute your job. And that's what this game boils down to.
Foster got his first touchdown, obviously, with the team yesterday. Can you just speak to his impact and his journey to that point?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, for him to, show up here one day and everything's great, and then the next thing you know, you're getting this, news that you have cancer. I mean, I know people that have gotten that word before, and it's not an easy, word to hear. So his ability to attack that head on is a testament to him, and I think that's really kind of how he is as a football player. He attacks the game head on. I thought he had a great week of practice this week. I thought he was vocal at times when needed to be, and it was awesome to see. I was excited for him. I think we may have located that ball too, so that's a good deal.
Hey, Dennis, in the heat of the game, do you get a chance to appreciate that kind of moment, or do you have to, are you so focused on the game you can't really think?
Yeah, I don't think that's where my mind was at that point in time.
You have a short week coming up after this week. Do you do anything differently from a preparation? You keep talking about a great week of practice last week. Is it the same this week, knowing you have a quick week after it, or?
Yeah, everything's focused on this week. Focus on the Houston Texans and what do we have to do to try to win this game. And we won't look anywhere past that. And today was about making the corrections that we have to make from this past week's game, and then now we move on, and all of our attention and all of our focus is on Houston for this week. All good? All right, thanks.